Continuing on our discussion of the final exam review, we're now under the topic graph of functions. And one of the first questions, they ask you to use the graph of a function and to determine specific function values. Now, as you're looking at this graph, you'll notice that there are some points which are colored in or closed, which means they're usable or included as part of the graph. And other points are open or not colored in, and that indicates that they are not usable. So be careful as you're reading the graph. Now, they ask you several different questions. Remember, this number in the parentheses is your x value. So you're going to look for that value on the horizontal axis and find the corresponding value on the vertical. So f at -3, so 1, 2, 3, I'm at -3, and the point lies at 2 on the vertical axis. So this would be the value of 2. Again, you're really finding that ordered pair, which is -3, 2. Then it asks us the value of -2. So I go to -2, 1, 2. Now here again is where you got to be careful. Remember, this dot up here that's open or not colored in is not really part of the graph. So you want the one where it's closed, and that would be -1. So again, you're really finding that ordered pair, -2, -1. Then it asks me for the value at 0. Here again, when I'm at 0, on the x-axis, you have an open dot, remember, which is not part of the graph, and a colored in dot, which happens to be at 0. So you have the ordered pair 0, 0, which is the origin. Then it asks you for f at 1. So when I have a value of x equals 1, again, you have the open dot that's not included and a closed dot that is, and it happens to be at a value of +1. And then finally, they ask you about f at 2. So when x is 2, 1, 2, I am on the x-axis or have a value of 0. So again, it's just a matter of reading the graph and trying to basically find the ordered pair. But be careful, make sure you pay attention to whether the dot is colored in or not colored in. As we move to page 4, they begin to ask a different question on the review. It asks you to determine if the following equation is a function of x. And remember, to decide whether a graph is a function of x, we use the vertical line test. That's the easiest way to do it, especially when you're looking at a graph from a visual perspective. On the first question, or the second question, number 2, again, you got to be careful and pay attention to whether you have open dots or closed dots. So at -1 here, I have an open dot and a closed dot. So that would be acceptable. Even at 0, I have an open dot and a closed dot. That's okay. Where I run into trouble is at this value of 1, because I have a closed dot at 1 and a closed dot at -3. So I actually cross the graph 2 times, which means this graph fails the vertical line test. And because it fails the vertical line test, we have to say, no, it is not a function of x. On the graph for number 3, as I look at it, and think about running the vertical line test, I don't believe a vertical line would cross that graph at any point more than 1 time. So we can actually say, yes, that the graph of number 3 is a function because it does pass that vertical line test. Looking at some more supplemental questions, again, they ask kind of that same question. Determine if the following equation is a function of x. And again, you want to use or think about using the vertical line test. With this particular equation on the left, which looks like maybe an exponential or a logarithmic function. Again, if you visualize those vertical lines, I don't believe a vertical line would cross more than once. So again, we can say yes, because it passes the vertical line test. With the graph on the right, again, thinking about those vertical lines, and it doesn't appear that a vertical line would cross it more than one time at any given point. So again, we can say yes, that it passes the vertical line test. Again, doing the same thing, determining if the following equation is a function of x. If you look at the graph on the right, which appears to be more of an ellipse or something similar to a circle, and you think about drawing a vertical line, even if I start way over here on the left side, I notice that I'm going to cross the graph 2 times, which means it fails the vertical line test. If it fails the vertical line test, we have to say, no, it is not a function. With the graph on the right, again, be careful because you got open dots and colored dots. Okay, so let's think about it. Okay, here at -2, I got an open and a closed. That's okay. At 0, I have an open and a closed. That's okay. And at +1, I have an open and a closed. That's okay. So it appears that this one would actually pass the vertical line test. So we can say, yes, this is a function because it does pass the vertical line test. Guys, just be careful, because even I missed it sometimes the first time around. Okay, so be careful and make sure you pay attention, especially if you have one of those with closed dots and open dots.